participant also.
Sir, is it disturbing?
No. It's okay.
There's too much of disturbance.
මට මීටින් එකක් තියෙනවා ICA.
Welcome, friends. My name is Naveen Kumar Singh, and I currently work as Program Officer at International Cooperative Alliance Asian Pacific Office. I also work as Secretary for Asian Pacific Office's Research Committee. And welcome to all of you in today's session. Today's session, we are focusing on how we can promote partnership between the governments and cooperatives. And as part of that, we are having this colloquium around a recent study that was conducted by the members of the research committee, and it was done in coordination with a few more experts from different countries. So we are about to start today's session now, and for future reference, I am recording the sessions at my end, and we are also live on YouTube, so that you all can take a look, go back to the recordings and refer to the discussions that we have today. And also, after the session, we will have a small round of feedback so that we can get some insights on how we can improve for further sessions. So before starting, I would like to welcome today's speakers and our research committee members. We have Dr. Sitzel Grimstad with us from Australia. She'll be setting up today's stage for discussion, and she is the vice chairman of research committee also. And we have two speakers today with us. One is Professor Indra she's a retired professor from Mysore University, and Dr. Yaswant Dongre is vice chancellor at Chanakya University, India. They both led this study, which was done in 10 countries, and they'll be our speakers for today. So now I would like to invite Dr. Sitzel Grimstad to set today's context, and so that we can start our discussion for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Naveen, and good day, everybody. I gather it's kind of mid-morning in India now, so whereas in Australia it's in the afternoon. This is the fourth colloquium that the Cooperative Research Committee is organizing this year, and it is about presenting a big study that Dr. Yashavante Dongre and this Dr. Indira has been undertaking in collaboration with multiple other countries in the Asia Pacific. It talks a lot about how the state and cooperatives can, first of all, it's a mapping, I guess, of how the state and cooperatives are collaborating currently together in different country contexts. But I guess it also looks at what are the perceptions of stakeholders in relation to this collaboration. And last, I think there will be some kind of conclusions around different types of state cooperative collaboration, and maybe some recommendations or some kind of ideas about how you can both strengthen and overcome challenges in this collaborative network. I think it's a really important study because, as we all now know, cooperation between cooperative is one of the main themes for next year's International Year of Cooperatives. And I think this is really setting the ground or starting this discussion around how can we improve this cooperation. So I won't talk any longer. I will give the floor to, I think, Yashavanti Dongre first. Yes, maybe you can start the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Sitzel, and very good morning, everybody. I request Professor Indira to kindly share the screen so that we can start the presentation. As we get to see the slides, let me begin first with the context of this particular study. We did this study more as a kind of a mapping of the current status of the relationship between state and cooperatives. And this was undertaken, this was a study which we did in a very short period, maybe about 3 to 4 months. And this was done for a specific requirement. You all probably know that the ICA-AP periodically conducts the Cooperative Ministers Conference. And the last conference was held last year, 2024. And they wanted to present, this scenario for discussion among the ministers' conference. And therefore, ICA proposed as to whether we can sort of come with a mapping of the situation so that we provide some input for the cooperative ministers, the policymakers to discuss. That's the background with which we started. Professor Indra, next slide, please. So we all know that we have been talking about partnership. In fact, the 21st century probably looks to be all about collaboration, partnership, and so we have realized that you can't do things unless you join together. As far as the collaboration between state and cooperatives are concerned, again, right from the very inception of the movement, we have seen that states have tried to work closely with cooperatives, especially in the Asia-Pacific region. We find this much more pronounced. And the relationships, of course, are also peculiar. Sometimes it's too much of a state that you see over cooperatives, and sometimes you don't find, a very supportive kind of a state. These have been there periodically, but states have realized that they need to work with cooperatives because cooperatives are an effective agency to reach out to people and to deliver many of the state programs, especially the welfare programs, the social the social development initiatives and things like that. This has been well recognized by multilateral bodies, ILO, United Nations, and they have been talking a lot about the significance of cooperatives and also underlying the need for state and cooperatives to work together, or the states to recognize and work together with cooperatives. Now, the launch of the second UN International Year of Cooperatives in 2025 provides us, I think, a much more significant ground as to why we need to talk more about partnerships and collaborations. Therefore, I think the 2024 Ministers' Conference really, tried to deliberate on a very important futuristic kind of issue. So we did this study with a large group of people. So myself and Professor Indira trying to put this together. In fact, a lot of academic input has come from Professor Indira. I also had my colleague at Chanakya University, Dr. Sandeep Nair, logistically coordinating the institutional arrangements, etc. Then we had Dr. Sagar Wadkar from India, Dr. UP Sanu from Japan, Dr. Samir, from Jordan, Dr. Mira from Kyrgyzstan, Professor Balakrishnan from Malaysia, Miss Arifai Aicha from Morocco, Dr. Gyanendra Prasad from Nepal, Mr. Romulo Villamin from the Philippines, Mr. Ramesh Chand from Fiji, and Professor Sehwan Jong and Sumi Cho from Korea. So these are our partners, and many of them, I think many of you would be very familiar because these are people who have been very active researchers in the cooperative field. Now, let me first draw the lines clearly because this is not a study which is a sample-based study, or this is not, I would say, in the academic parameters of what a good study should be. This is not of that kind of a length of a study, and we need to really put in a lot more things into it to really convert that into that kind of a study. So this is more exploratory in nature. We were trying to map the existing situation across the region to see how are things, what's the nature of this relationship between state and government. Can we identify some positive points, some not so positive points? So we were just trying to map this. So this study is all about that. So this is important because I also saw in some of the questions, for example, what kind of an analytical tool is used, or what kind of a framework is used. So there's not much of that essentially for this study as it stands now. Yeah, next slide, please. So these are the countries that are covered in the study: India, Nepal, Malaysia, Philippines, Japan, Korea, Kyrgyzstan, Jordan, Morocco, and Fiji. Of course, it's Asia Pacific, but Morocco is also part of the ICA-AP activities, and therefore we have taken Morocco as well. Now, looking at the literature on partnership, generally, we find that there have been quite a bit of studies on intersectoral partnerships, including government and private sector partnerships, because this has been, I think, for the last couple of decades, something that has been happening world over. Therefore, there is a much closer academic interest in the partnership between state and the private sector. Similarly, there is also, you find enough of literature about the role of the cooperatives in the economy, and also the extent of involvement of state or government in using cooperatives as a channel to deliver government programs. This is something in Asia Pacific you find a lot of literature related to that. However, exploring specifically the nature of partnership between government and cooperative, like, is there a contractual relationship, or is it the principal agency relationship, or how is this kind of a partnership actually is working, or is it only for specific social goods delivery, or whether it goes beyond that? So these kind of studies are not much seen in the general literature that we try to look at. Therefore, we thought we will bring these things into our study. The next slide, please. So we broadly set the objectives on these lines. One, of course, is a review of the existing architecture for that facilitates or not facilitating the partnership, particularly looking at the constitutional provisions, the policy initiatives, the legal framework existing across countries, and to map some of these existing partnerships between government bodies and cooperatives. So therefore, we also have some case studies in the end in this report, we tried to pick up some cases from some countries where the state and the cooperatives together, are taking up some activity. There's also we tried to look at how this relationship between state and cooperatives is perceived, particularly by the cooperators, that means the cooperative leadership, as well as by the policymakers. So we tried to devise a small questionnaire and asked all our country partners to reach out to some small sample of the cooperative leaders as well as the policymakers, just to know, have a feel of what do they think about and the partnership between cooperatives and the state, and then see if whether we can give some indicative recommendations that, okay, this is where we are and this is what we could try and explore, kind of recommendations. That's how we try to go about. So what I'll do is I'll primarily cover the first part of the instruments of engagement, what provides the ground or what sets the ground for partnership, where we will be looking at the constitutional provisions, the policies, and the legal framework. And then Professor Indira will take over from there on. We'll speak about the nature of engagement and the further details that we have worked in this report. Now, we find that in among the 10 countries that we looked at, in some of the countries we have the national constitution itself talking about cooperatives specifically and providing space for cooperatives. This is less in number. Out of the 10, I think we have India, Nepal, Philippines, where we find that the constitution speaks about cooperatives. And in case of India, for example, it is part of the citizens' right to constitute different forms of associations, etc., under which specifically cooperatives are mentioned, something like that. So otherwise, we find there is an indirect mention, more where you find associations are mentioned. So it is assumed that cooperatives being form of association, constitutions have provided for this. So there is no specific mention of the word cooperative, but because associations are permitted, cooperatives also are permitted. So this is, however, there are also situations where there is no mention of either association or cooperatives. Maybe those are the countries where the constitution probably is taking a more neutral stand, or maybe a more restrictive stand in some sense. On ground, you find that the neutral stand also turns out to be a bit restrictive. If you look at the legal framework, we find that the laws again vary from country to country when you look at the legislative framework. Broadly in Asia Pacific, we have two legal approaches to cooperative. One is you have a single legislation which takes care of cooperatives, all kinds of cooperatives. You also have in some countries where you have multiple legislations, a legislation for a particular subsector of the cooperative. That means you have a separate legislation for consumer cooperative, a separate legislation for agricultural cooperative, like that. So typically, most countries that follow the so-called the British India model of cooperatives, they have a single legislation. India and many other countries who are formerly the colonies, etc., they all have a single legislation, whereas countries typically, for example, Japan has multiple legislations. That is, each subsector has a separate law. And because of that, the nature of relationship between state and cooperative across subsectors differ, because each sector has a subsector has a separate law. That's what we find broadly. Now, if you look at the legal framework in some of these countries, the legislations have evolved in the last 10, 12 years, and some very innovative kind of legal framework have come. The one example that I would like to give is of Korea, where we have the Framework Act. I think Framework Act came about a decade ago, probably 2012, around that time. And ever since this new law was put in place, um, the possibilities for the cooperative sector has just amplified, just increased. And there are a lot of autonomous cooperatives that have come up. I think we already probably have some of my partner researchers present here. And if our Korean partners are here, maybe later, they can also explain how the framework law is a very innovative effort in Korea. Now, the third one that we have looked at is the policy framework. Again, just like the legal provisions are there practically in every country, the laws are there in every country, but the constitutional provisions on cooperatives are not there everywhere. Similarly, a national policy on cooperatives is not there in all the countries. In some countries, we have a very specific national policy. So in India, national policy was put in place in 2002. In case of Japan, we find that the co-op's engagement in specific projects have the policy frameworks available, but not as a national policy. So Malaysia has a cooperative policy. In fact, the cooperative policy lays down a full roadmap up to 2030 in case of Malaysia. So in case of Kyrgyzstan, we find that there is a policy framework which is more focused on agricultural cooperatives. So there are a few countries which have laid out a national policy over a period of time. In case of India, there is a relook on the national policy that has just now happened because the policy was earlier policy was in 2002, and now a new national policy draft is in place. We expect a new policy to be officially in place in maybe a few months' time. So some countries have only regulatory framework. A very few number of countries have a constitutional provision, and slightly larger number of countries have a policy framework. This is what we find. Now, in the constitution, essentially the idea is to create a space within the national constitution for cooperatives to emerge. Whereas in case of policy, we find that a kind of a roadmap for the growth of the cooperative is created. On the other hand, the legislations have gone into the specifics of monitoring and control. So the policies have provided direction and scope for cooperatives. The legislative frameworks have looked more from the monitoring and control perspective. That's the general scenario that we find. Yeah. So, the constitutional provision for cooperatives, as seen like India, Nepal, and Philippines, we find they emphasize on making cooperatives, developing cooperatives as voluntary initiatives. However, an example I am giving in case of Malaysia, it is just a mention in the federal list in the constitution. The legal provisions, again, are the ones where these are created more keeping monitoring and control in mind. However, they also lay out the ground for specific functional aspects of cooperatives. For example, the legal frameworks define and say which kind of business a cooperative can do, what kind of partnerships cooperatives can actually enter into. So some of these things are found in the legal framework. Therefore, we feel that there is a lot of role of the legislations in determining the nature of partnership between state and the cooperative. So the laws, the legal framework have played a very important role in determining the nature of partnership. Partnerships are also there, mentioned very specifically in the policies, like the example of the Philippines, where there is this specific mention, mainly because of the Cooperative Development Authorities Charter of 2019, which talks about partnership and complementation. So I think this is one country where we find a very clear mention in the policy about the need for and the nature of partnership between state and cooperatives. And therefore, we have also found that there are many examples in the Philippines as to how there is a joint activity that is going on. So we have included a case study from Philippines to demonstrate this. So this is broadly in terms of the constitutional, legal, and policy framework across the region. I now request Professor Indira to speak about the nature of engagement and other issues.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Very good morning to each and every one of you. And as Professor Dongre mentioned, it is an exploratory study and it is a qualitative study where we try to use Max QDA as a software to look at the policies and try to understand if there is any mention about the partnerships, and that is the policy analysis part of it. But apart from that, we also looked at the nature of engagement. So what type of institutions are created and what kind of policy environment, how far the policy environment is providing the enabling environment for the promotion of partnerships, and whether cooperatives are consulted in policy making. So the engagement is only contributing finances, sir, or are there is the state engaging with the cooperatives in contributing human resources also? And how far are there some fiscal incentives, or is there any preferential treatment for cooperatives? These are different ways of engaging with the cooperatives. So in our partner countries, we try to look at this nature of engagement through the conversations with the policymakers and the stakeholders, and also looking at the documents that are available for the cooperative sector. Sorry, something is wrong. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to reduce this, collapse this. Okay, yeah. So Professor Dongre mentioned about the legal, constitutional provisions, legal provisions, and policy provisions. So we try to look at what are the institutions for promoting the engagement and how they are engaged at present. So, for example, there are several institutions. In India, you have National Cooperative Union of India and National Cooperative Development Corporation. So there are several institutions, and some of them are mainly focusing on cooperative education, and mainly they are in promoting cooperative education and the financial contributions, like for example, Cooperative Development Corporation. So some of the institutions are engaged in providing having financial engagement, and whereas some are providing education, cooperative education. So whereas there are also tax exemptions and preferential purchases in India, and also some of them are implementing the government program. So these programs are implemented through some of these institutions. Whereas in the case of Japan, we will find several institutions. And for example, National Federation of Agriculture Cooperatives, Central Union of Agriculture. So some of these institutions are engaged with the cooperatives, and engagement primarily revolves around cooperative education and sector-specific support. So cooperatives, and in Japan also, cooperatives have got tax exemption, and some of them are indirect subsidies are also there, and they're extensively involved in delivering government services in the field of agriculture. So in Japan, what we found is the cooperatives are actively engaged with the government is actively engaged with the cooperatives in agriculture sector. So similarly, in the case of Jordan, In Jordan, Cooperative Corporation is the institution, main institution. So how it engages is by performing these three functions. It has a regulatory function, development function, and also a representative function. So, but in Jordan, it doesn't directly contribute to the share capital, but it partners in the form of grants and also technical expertise and consulting services in the agriculture sector. So there are also tax exemptions. But whereas in Kyrgyzstan, it is focus is on supporting, as the professor told, it is mainly on agriculture sector. So here also you find some institutions, and they are also facilitating to acquire knowledge or training from the other countries. So similarly, in the case of Malaysia also you have institutions. So yearly the involvement in cooperative education and training supported by the national policies. So in the case of Morocco, Ministry of Tourism, Handicrafts and Social Solidarity Economy. And they are the main institution, and this oversees the promotion and regulation of. So through by promoting and regulating the cooperatives, they engage with the local cooperatives, and especially Office of the Cooperative Development engages cooperatives by maintaining central register. So these are more of regulatory kind of a thing rather than exchanging the what is called human resources or capabilities. Whereas in what happened next? Okay. So similarly in Nepal. So Nepal also you have what is called the National Cooperative Federation of Nepal. So mainly it contributes to cooperative education, and also they also provide the financial support. Like that is how actually it engages with the cooperatives. So Philippines is a country where you find several kinds of engagement. So in this particular country, engagement is not only through the financial resources, it also engages through providing the technical guidance and also, of course, implementing other cooperative development programs and integrating cooperatives into the government welfare programs to develop them into a viable economic enterprises. So in case of Philippines, the focus is on developing the cooperatives as viable enterprises which contribute, which produce high value in the economy. So the efforts or the engagement includes technical guidance and also the financial support in the case of Philippines. And in the Republic of Fiji also you find that Department of Cooperative Business, it engages with cooperatives. It provides both monetary and also the non-monetary support. So but in Korea you will find that government shares finances and opportunities with the cooperatives and supports the promotion of business models. So, excuse me. So Republic of Korea, you will find that there is an engagement of government, and there is also what is called the preferential procurement system. In Korea, you will find the preferential procurement system to purchase from the cooperatives. So that is also a not directly monetary, and it is a non-monetary kind of engagement. So from this, what we can understand is that the engagement varies from country to country, and in some cases it is through providing monetary resources. In several countries you will see that there is a lot of monetary support from the from cooperatives, from government to the cooperatives. But actually what we are looking at is the partnerships. In partnerships, the resource flow should be from both the partners, and both the partners should be able to create the collaborative value. And in this, what we observed from the existing literature available in the public domain. So what we understand is the partnership between the corporate government and the cooperatives is, in majority of the countries, it is more of financial rather than non-financial, but non-monetary engagement is also there in some countries. So providing enabling environment. So providing enabling environment is a non-monetary engagement. So government provides the environment through which it is possible for the cooperatives to engage with the other institutions and also with the government. So that kind of providing enabling environment you will find in several of the countries, and they also recognize that cooperatives are very, very important for the country. So in some countries, the cooperatives are integrated in the national development strategies, and whereas in some countries it is only through providing the training programs and facilitating the engagement. And consulting cooperatives. Consulting cooperatives is also another way of engaging with the cooperatives. So as I told you, engagement need not necessarily only contributing to the share capital. So by way of engaging in the form of consulting the cooperatives, it is possible to evolve the policies which evolve win-win situation. So but cooperatives are seldom consulted in several countries. Only in few countries there are mechanisms for the consultations, but the implementation is not up to the level. That is what the literature says, and also the opinions of the policymakers and also the stakeholders. So what we observe is that consultative possibilities are there. For example, opportunities are there. So in India, there are opportunities, and recent cooperative policy is made in consultation with the several stakeholders. So there are mechanisms, but still they need to be strengthened for improving the partnerships between the government and the cooperatives. So similarly, Japan government consults with cooperative sector, appropriate policies, for example, agriculture policy, there are consultations. So Jordan cooperatives involved in meeting, but there also it is not any regular consultation. Whereas in Korea also in Korea you will find regular consultations through various frameworks and surveys. Whereas in Morocco also, ministers consult with cooperatives pertaining to their particular sector. So, but only in Philippines you will find there is a consultative mechanism for implementing the cooperative policies. So means, here also it varies. The spectrum is, there are provisions in the policies, there are provisions in the law, but in reality the consultative process is not very regular. Financial contributions, as I told you, in several of the countries, government engages with the cooperatives through financial contribution. See, in partnerships, both partners should be equal. Whereas when it comes down only to the financial contributions, certainly government will exercise some control over the cooperatives. But it is not so in all the countries, but only in some countries you will find that because government is sharing financial resources, government has an upper hand. So in several cases, for example, Malaysia, they provide the soft loans and also the grants. So many countries, government is engaging with the cooperatives through the financial contributions. So Philippines cooperatives Philippines also you will find Department of Agriculture has a budget allocation from the national government to support the capital requirements of the Farmers Association. And Korea Social Enterprise Promotion Agency, they partner with cooperatives by sharing skills and promoting human resources. This is very, very important. So it also shares financial resources. It also shares what is called the cooperative, they also share the skills and human resource base. So in several places, several countries, government is contributing to cooperatives, or rather engaging with the cooperatives in the form of improving their human resources. So you will find training programs in several countries. So in Kyrgyzstan, local universities and NGOs are also involved in training. And Malaysia also you will find various institutions involved in providing the human resources. So government involves in cooperative education through cooperative by involving the local universities. And in many countries, in many of the sample countries, the human resources contribution is the cooperatives are engaging with the government in getting the human resources. So that is observed in almost all the countries. Government is involved in improving the human resources. So similarly, government programs also in several countries, government has been involved in government welfare programs, implementation of government programs. Particularly in India, you find that there are several programs which are implemented where tripartite, for example, SSVINI scheme, you find that tripartite government and NGO and the cooperative as partners. So such kind of government program, implementation of government programs is observed in several of the countries. So fiscal incentives are also provided in tax exemptions, and several tax exemptions are provided. Whereas Jordan, there is no specific tax privilege for the cooperatives. So this is one way of engagement with the cooperatives. And another important way of engagement with the cooperatives, the government engagement with the cooperatives, is preferential treatment. Preferential treatment in several of the countries, but it is not there in some countries. For example, in India, you have a legislation for preferential purchases from the procurement from the cooperatives. So, whereas in Korea, preferential purchase guidelines for cooperatives are given under the Framework Act. Framework Act is a very, very important, important legislation which encourages engagement of the government with the cooperatives. So in Korea, you will find the preferential purchase guidelines are given, and also Philippines also. Preferential rights in public services and supply to government institutions are very clearly mentioned in their documents. So, but that is not so in several of the countries. That kind of extensive preferential treatment is not given in several of the countries, several of the sample countries, because this engagement through the preferential purchases is a long term, and it is a win-win case for the cooperatives as well as the government, which need to be promoted. And also, as Professor mentioned, perceptions of the stakeholders were also collected in all the sample countries, and all the research partners have helped us in getting the perceptions of the stakeholders. And I combined all the perceptions of all the stakeholders, and basically we found out, we asked them about their perceptions about the future, in the sense whether the partnerships is helpful or not, and whether partnerships should be mandated, because this gives us an idea, it gives us a roadmap in which direction the participation, the partnerships between government and cooperatives can be promoted. So these are some of the perceptions, especially on the importance and things. So almost all the participants, they agreed that partnerships are very, very important. So all the stakeholders think that partnerships between government and cooperatives is a win-win situation. But whereas, and some have gone to the extent of saying that without government support, the cooperatives cannot exist, and without the cooperatives, government agenda cannot be fulfilled. So means, the overall outcome will be much better if cooperatives and the government engage. So, and especially, and also in South Korea also, we observed that there is an agreement for the partnerships between the government and the cooperatives. So how these partnerships are done, in the sense, are there any formal MOUs? So whereas in India, you find that in some places there are MOUs, but in mention here, like IFCO, they have MOU with some companies. And Jordan also had partnerships with the water management, and they have an agreement. And Fiji also, you find that formal agreements, MOUs, and informal collaborations are outlined in the mutual responsibilities. And mandating partnerships. So we did ask them, do we have to mandate it? For example, why this question has come about is, like, of course, cooperatives are voluntary organizations. They came out with the voluntary involvement of the members. In that case, should we have to mandate the partnership? So that is a kind of debate. So recently we conducted a study on understanding the mandatory partnership between companies and the non-governmental organizations. So here the mandate came for the companies. Companies are mandated to partner with the non-governmental organizations. That has helped several non-governmental organizations to involve with the companies. And similarly, companies also companies also gained in their knowledge about identification of social issues. So in that context, we did ask them about mandating partnerships, and some partners have told that it is not necessary. Voluntary collaborations is enough, but we need supportive policies. But whereas in some countries, they said that given the national needs and mandatory partnerships are also supported by some of the policymakers. But what they observed is that conditional support in certain sectors like agriculture, dairy, etc., is suggested. So similarly, perceptions about what should be shared, whether the sharing, because in partnerships there will be sharing. Both partners will be sharing resources. So whether it should be restricted only to the financial resources, or it should be for the non-financial resources also. Sharing of non-financial resources like access to the administrative bodies and training institutions, they are also supported. Support other aspects like fund attraction. In all these cases, it is possible for the government to support non-financial resources, like providing access to the administrative bodies and things like that. So similarly, involvement of cooperation in the welfare programs. So we also asked them whether the government should engage with the cooperatives in the implementation of the welfare programs. So this also many have supported this. So deep community connections enable cooperatives to deliver services. So specific involvement in the areas of healthcare and support for individuals with special needs. In those areas, there is the involvement of cooperatives in the implementation of welfare programs. So all these perception will strengthen the case for promoting partnerships between government and the cooperatives. And whether formally, I think this is the earlier one. So this is same thing. It is in a tabular format. But what are the major challenges? So what are the major challenges identified is there is a strong support, of course, for partnerships and the need for better cooperative education. And why it is important is partnership helps in achieving national development goals. But what are the main challenges pursued by the stakeholders is that one thing is financial constraints, and main thing is lack of professionalism. Lack of professionalism and bureaucratic processes and governance issues, and also involvement of multiple stakeholders. See, there is a lot of literature on partnerships and how to make partnerships and work for the benefit of both the parties. See, for example, UNDP recently, they have produced one report in which, there is how collaborative advantage can be levered for the institutions. So developing partnerships, you really need skills. So the major challenge in the cooperative sector for developing the partnerships which create collaborative value, that is the delta profit, or we can't say profit, we can say the welfare. So that is possible when there is a clarity about the partnerships. So here one of the important challenges observed is that lack of professionalism and bureaucratic processes and regulatory requirements and there are several stakeholders, and also the size of the cooperatives also, it also is identified as one of the major challenges. The some other major challenges people observed is bureaucratic process. I'm going up. Okay. So the other challenges are assistance from vested interests, ensuring compliance. So you need the commitment from the government for ensuring the partnerships to work for the for both the parties. In the sense, you observe that, but there are also gains from partnerships, the existing literature, and also the stakeholders also mentioned about the gains from the partnerships. See, for example, innovation through knowledge exchange. See, in India, the Kisan card is an example for financial transactions. And Korea and Fiji and Jordan, you will find that the cooperatives gained. For example, in Jordan, engagement of youth and women in productive economic activities increase reachability and effective community services. So it is possible for the cooperatives to gain from the both cooperatives and also the government to gain from the cooperative, from the partnerships. So as I told you, lack of expertise, bureaucratic processes, administrative constraints are there, and a low awareness level, and no regular consultation with the cooperatives in many countries. See, developing successful partnerships needs a lot of commitment on the part of the the partners. So what suggestions came about from the stakeholders and from what we observed from the existing institutions and the mechanisms? So as I told you, it is, as Professor Dongre also mentioned, it is not an evaluation. It is not an evaluation of how partnerships are working. So to evaluate how partnerships are working, you need separate methodology, you need different instruments, which are also available. But in this particular study, these suggestions are made basically based on the existing situation and also the suggestions of the stakeholders. So one thing is effective implementation of existing provisions. So some of the stakeholders felt that just you don't have to really change anything. There are provisions in our policies itself, but the only thing is we have to see to it that they are effectively implemented. This is some of the stakeholders opine that. So it is important to see to it that the existing provisions are implemented properly, create an enabling environment and supportive administrative policies. So bring in synergy between the administrative policies and also strengthening the National Cooperative Federation. This suggestion has come about. And similarly, regular meetings. See, in any partnership, regular communication between partners is very much stressed by several in several forums. So regular contact and regular meeting with the partners and between the partners is very important, and that actually helps the partnership to give much more value to both the partners. So regular meetings, forums, and advisory boards are important. And somebody has suggested that dedicated platforms are you can be created so that there will be focus on the partnerships. So Fiji government policymakers feel that allocating separate budget for the cooperative development fund is also being suggested by some of the partners. So basically what comes out of this is the entire study is that we do have enough policy support, enough laws for the engagement of cooperatives, for the engagement of government with the cooperatives. So what we need is, we need to spend some more time. We need to analyze the existing partnerships and what they have gained, and document the partnerships, the gains from the partnerships to the partners. So understanding this will be able to provide more guidelines to what needs to be done. So in several countries, we have mechanisms, but those mechanisms are to be implemented, and we need proper implementation of these mechanisms, and also document the existing partnerships and how much value can be attributed to the partnerships, what would have happened without partnership. So these kind of research studies will be able to suggest us what needs to be done for the cooperative sector to have partnership with the government. Because, partnerships between similar kind of organizations is easy to manage because they have the same objective and same mechanism. But in the case of cross-sector partnerships are government and private sector partnerships. So there, in the case of cross-sector partnerships, there are several issues to be settled. But whereas in the case of cooperatives, both government and cooperative both aim at welfare of the members. So in that objective, both the institutions have the similar objective, but the mechanisms are different. So it is important to identify where the government and the cooperatives can bring their expertise and create the collaborative value for the society. I think I will stop here because it is already, I think I got some message also. Thank you so much for, I will stop sharing. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I have exceeded the time. I didn't look at the time also. I'm sorry if I am too fast. Please, now the floor is open for any discussion. And I will give examples when there are questions come about.
Prof, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Professor Bala from Malaysia. I'm one of the partner from Malaysia. Can I suggest to see to talk to the government that we can come out some research grant from the top down grant. That meaning to say from the ministry level to so they can point us, all of us actually expert in the cooperative. So why not we do next research? I think come from each country. So you see now many our graduates is unemployed. I think it's happened every country, and we are looking to other option for them to involve. If you look at the cooperative, they're less involved. They don't know actually. We done a study at the master's level. One of my student is a senior manager in cooperative. Angkasa, I think you know Angkasa. He's senior manager in Sabah. So you do study on what the graduate think. But sadly to say that 90% of them don't know what is the role of the cooperative. And then I think from that study, we're going to have more engagement, like what they say with the government. Because we found that graduate is very important to move the business at the cooperative level. So cooperative is not like social entity, but it's go beyond that. So I believe that what we do today is a noble thing. So we might come up with some research grant to do research, and then we submit to the policy to the country. But of course, the grant should be come from each of the country lah. Each government put some, because I think already happening in Malaysia. I can see when it comes to the policy, they are very much interested. But if it come from the ICA, then it will be much better. So that's my suggestion, Prof. Otherwise, I'm very sad the graduate, will be not participating actively in cooperative. So this is what my move now. I'm starting at the university. Next month, I am establishing one cooperative among the Indian students because there's a need for them to, start at the campus level so they can start. So the SKM, the commission, the director of commission in Kelantan, my state, is actually former our alumni from students. So he's going to help us to set up. So I'm going to start on the campus itself. I'm going to monitor them so that they can be entrepreneur or whatever, and they know about cooperative. So this initiative I done, I really thanks to all of you to open up this new way of thinking. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Bala. And I think we have a few questions already sent to us. I request Naveen. Naveen has put up these questions. Maybe briefly, we can take up those questions and try and reply to them. And after that, we can again get back to the participants. Only request is, I think all of you will have to be brief in your question, and we will try to be brief in our replies. Naveen?
Yes. So thank you, sir. I will read out the questions that we have received during the registration. So first question is, what challenges exist in promoting partnership between the state and cooperatives, and how managerial expertise be enhanced to address these challenges? And how, if we are doing this, so how we can do this without diluting the intrinsic value of cooperatives?
Yeah, I think Professor Indira in the last part of her presentation listed out the challenges already. So let me not repeat that. What we notice in general is that there is a good intent. That means both from the state side and the cooperative side, the intention or recognizing the need for partnership is very much present, but the mechanisms of facilitating partnerships are largely not in place. That's what we gather. Of course, each country's situation is different, unique in some sense. However, a greater kind of a proof of how partnership can give result. I think if that kind of a study comes out, then I think it would be easier to convince both the sides about
Yes.
the need for closer engagement. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So I have two more similar questions. One is about if we are doing this partnership again, it is like how to minimize the government involvement of government in cooperative affairs. So this is the crux of these two questions, that we can promote the partnership but minimize the involvement of government so that the cooperative principles are not affected.
Yeah. I
Sir,
think this
shall I
challenge,
answer?
yeah, I mean, this challenge is not just for the government and cooperative partnership. Any cross-sector partnership has a challenge of possibility of one dominating over the other, one trying to control the other. So it's a essentially an element of the partnership, cross-sector partnership. Uh, Unfortunately, in some countries, there has been a long history for state intervention in cooperatives, and therefore, to that extent, it's already a complex one. So one has to really tried this very carefully and take the path. I think with a lot of care is required in doing this. I can't really come out with one suggestion to say that how it can be minimized.
Sir, in partnerships, both partners should sit together and identify what needs to be shared and what is to be done by which partner. So that is very, very essential for even reducing the government involvement, what people are talking about. But it is important for both parties to sit together and identify what they want to share and how much they want to share and how they want to share. So only then it is possible to arrive at some kind of solutions. Yes.
Uh, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. So the next question is that it is from Philippines and Cameroon, that participants want to know that how this study and how the global cooperative experiences can help in help stakeholders for actively participating in future, especially in the field of research and having new initiatives around cooperatives.
Yeah, I mean, one way would be the very objective of this platform, the ICA-AP Research Committee, is to bring all the researchers from across the region together and create platforms so that we all can learn from each other. So I would only say that this study is also one more attempt, collaborative attempt in that sense. It's a partnership. So I think it opens up a lot of knowledge for each one of us, to learn as far as research is concerned. At the same time, we observed that this study provided a very good ground for the policymakers to debate in the previous meeting of the, when the meeting of the cooperative ministers were held. I see Samir here. He was the one who made a presentation on our behalf in the cooperative ministers conference. He has
Yes.
also raised his hand. See, it's also possible that when these kinds of studies come up, there will be more focused discussion at the policymakers level, and therefore the message is carried back to their respective countries, and maybe it will ignite, some thought, and some positive changes will happen.
Sir, can I just about
Yeah.
this? No, I was thinking because for us also it is something new we attempted in this. I think first of its kind in cooperative sector to understand the partnerships, and it gives a kind of framework. And of course, it still needs some more refinement, and it develops a kind of framework. That's what Samir. What do you think? Do you also think so? It provides a kind of framework to understand the partnerships and cooperatives.
First, I would like to thank you all to give me the opportunity to work with you all, guys. It was my pleasure to work with you through the the Dead Sea conference. And actually, yes, I agree with you for that. And we need to take care of something very serious is the CLA. The CLA, it's the collaboration, learning, and
Lemon.
we learn from each other. All the countries has, as Dr. Dongre said, that there is like in each country they have specific culture, specific rules and regulation, but cooperative still cooperatives. What I need also is to make this collaboration, because cooperative need to be link all the time, and do this learning process all the time, and do this partnerships with the government all the time. And on the other hand, we need all to like to meet each 2 3 months to discuss some learning from each country. This will lead to a positive feedback, because all the time, especially in Jordan, and Jordan is a small country. We are 10 million population. We have 1,500 cooperatives. 70% are active. But till now, we have this issue for tax, for example. All the time, they consider the cooperative as companies. So they took like 21% of the tax. And what Dr. Andaria present, especially the tax, Jordan still need to learn from other countries how they can reduce or do some clusters or for cooperative to exempt the tax or decline the percentage of the tax. So those are some issues that we need to learn from each other. So I believe, I don't know, the outcome of this gathering is to have like a regular meeting to discuss the issues in the countries that face some challenges, and learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samir. Naveen, other
Yes.
question?
Yes, sir. One more that question that I see that we would like to cover here is, how can cooperative policies in countries like India better align with sustainable development goals?
Yeah, I think almost all policies have a focus on sustainable development, irrespective of the country, because we have been now in that mood of SDGs, and I feel every policy will have reference to sustainable development. Two things that I noticed in the policy framework when I looked at Malaysia, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, some of these things, that cooperatives have been very clearly seen as facilitators of sustainable development. And in fact, the states will be interested to partner with such institutions which will contribute positively towards achieving the sustainable development goals. So I would say every policy has a reference in one way or the other about sustainable development.
Right. Thank you, sir. So now we would like to go questions that one I have in the chat box. It is from Dr. Amita. Dr. Amita mentions that Professor Indra was talking about the size of cooperatives is a challenge at the moment. So what are these challenges? Can you elaborate on this?
No, I mean, what it means is like cooperatives are different size. Okay, there are very small cooperatives, there are also bigger cooperatives. When it comes to entering into partnerships, so the smaller cooperatives may find some challenges. So there is cooperation among cooperatives will be able to do ease some of these issues, but the main problem is that some cooperatives are very small, and their financial turnover is also very low. So their capability of partnering with a bigger organization is a limitation for them. So that's what the cooperative size is an issue. See, in partners, they look for collaborative advantage. So when government wants to partner, or when cooperative wants to partner with government, some advantage should be created. Like, in collaborative advantage, 2 + 2 is not 4, it is more than 4. So then collaboration works. So smaller NGOs smaller cooperatives, that is the challenge. Yes.
Can I just raise one more issue here? I mean, thank
Yeah.
you, ma'am, for the answer. So I just glanced through the report and the summary, and I found one line very interesting, which says that in the conclusions, however, policy changes are needed to promote cooperatives as economic enterprises rather than limiting them to welfare institutions. So I found that very interesting. And I also have a suggestion in this regard, is that maybe more research can be focused. Research on cooperatives can be focused on what are the particular types of goods or services which are more amenable to be produced or marketed within cooperative structure. So that will probably give more success rate for cooperatives and make them also financially more viable and secure. So it's just a top of the head idea. I don't know how feasible it is, but I thought maybe I should just share it here. Thank you.
Now, Professor Dongre can social entrepreneur specialist. Yeah, sir, you.
Yeah. I agree.
Yes.
I agree with Amita. I think that the idea is that the competence of an institution as an enterprise is something very important if we are looking at partnership. That's the whole idea. I agree with you. Yeah.
Thank you. Now we have Dr. Sitzel raising her hand. So please.
I also saw Babul.
Yes.
I think Babul was before me, actually.
Yeah. So, okay, we can go to Babul and then to Sitzel.
Thank you thank you very much for a very good presentation, informative presentation. I am Babul. I work here in the National Cooperative Federation as a Deputy General Manager. And actually, my suggestion and query is that one suggestion is in Nepal, for your kind information, nowadays, especially the saving and credit cooperatives, which are basically operating in the rural or not rural, urban areas or the semi-urban areas are in a troublesome situation. I mean, they are not able to withdraw or return their deposit to the members. Yeah, so it's a kind of daily news in Nepal nowadays. Yeah? So in this context, we have many task force here. The government constituted task force, and the government, not only government, the parliament itself has also constituted one investigation committee to see the situation, especially of the saving and credit cooperatives, which are in a very problematic condition. Yeah. So they have given pages of report here. Still, still the opinion is different kinds of opinions that we don't have gone much deeper on the actual cause for that situation. Why those cooperatives were turned into a troublesome situation? Why they don't give the money of the members, deposit money of the members in time? And why the cooperatives are being defamed day by day here in Nepal? Where, as I already saw in the earlier presentation, that in Nepal we have the constitutional provision that Nepalese constitution has a provision that the cooperative is also one of the economic development pillar, equal with the public and private. Yeah. So in such a scenario, we have to conduct one very good research here. Yeah? So may I draw the attention of this research committee, because yes, this is the different program now organized, this committee. But I would like to draw the attention of this research committee under the ICA-AP that we have to conduct a very good research to find out the actual situation of this kind of a scenario in Nepal. One. And another is that I have been telling International Cooperative Alliance and its different forum that the cooperatives, the multi-purpose, especially the multi-purpose cooperatives, they don't have the actual prudential standards. Like, for example, the World Council of Credit Union have developed the Pulse rating system in order to see the actual situation, health situation of the cooperatives, especially the credit cooperatives or the credit union, in terms of assist, yes, in terms of liability, in terms of the managerial or the outputs. I mean, the pulse ratio systems, yeah, as you know all. So likewise, there is no any ratio system or the indicators of the multipurpose cooperative. So yes, sir, can we see the possibility to develop that kind of prudential standards? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This research committee, I mean, if there is a possibility, because we are representing here from the different country, so any country, if any country is interested to develop that kind of prudential standard, maybe it would be very good initiatives. Yes, sir. Not only useful for that country, but also useful for the whole cooperative community, which are doing the multifunctional business, not only saving and credit business. So these are my just suggestion and information also. Thank you very much for organizing this kind of very good informative program. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Babulji. Yeah, it's more of a viewpoint, and thank you very much for that suggestion. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should go to
Thank you,
Sitsil.
Dr. Dubey. Thank you.
Sitsil.
Yeah, thank you for this fabulous presentation and really interesting study. I really must agree that getting more of these comparative studies up will be so important to strengthen the identity of co-ops in general, and especially going into the next year. I was wondering, I'm kind of thinking about, I know this is, you know, in a way a start of a bigger study maybe, but can you see any kind of best practice? Can you see anything that works better than other things? For instance, from your analysis of all these countries, for instance, is a dedicated department in a ministry, does that secure better consultation? Does it secure maybe a dedicated budget or something like that? So that's one question I had. And also, does it secure a better understanding of members' interest versus state interest? You know, is there something we can draw out like as a best practice? That's one element. I'm curious if there has been mentioning of to what extent the state has the state's partnership with private sector is different to co-op sector. I'm sure there is, but I'm curious to hear it from their perspective, so to speak, because certainly in coming from Australia, you know, sometimes we feel that the state doesn't know what co-ops are, you know, like, and this is really problematic, because then, you know, we are really struggling then as to be partners in anything if they don't know what co-ops are. So yeah, that's two questions actually. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I'll answer the first one. The second one, I think Professor Indira should, because she has also studied other kinds of partnerships. Yeah. I think wherever you have a dedicated wing, a department or a unit of the government, obviously the communication between cooperative sector and the state has been quite good. Because that particular unit is there dedicated only, you know, for this kind of relationship. However, we don't have enough proof to say that it has translated into productive partnerships or you know, something of that kind. It has both the things. It has that unit has become a channel to facilitate partnership. At the same time, that unit in some cases has become an impediment because all kinds of restrictions come from that center. So we have both the examples. But we have evidences to show through our case studies that partnerships work effectively to the advantage of members as well as to the advantage of cooperatives and the state when the partnership attempt is on a specific kind of a service. For example, health services, an area into where government and cooperatives have come together in India. We find this partnership working very well because the delivery of the health services with the insurance scheme, reimbursement coming from the state, but entire mechanism facilitated by the cooperative is a model which is working very, very well. However, the same thing did not work so effectively after a point in the public distribution system that we had, where again the state and the cooperatives partnered. The public distribution mechanism was just thrown open to private. So it's a case by case kind of a thing. Therefore, I feel empirical studies and case studies across the region, I think, would be very, very helpful for us to understand and identify the potential areas of collaboration and cooperation. Yeah, Professor Indira.
Yeah, thank you. You were asking about the partnership between government and private, and partnership between government and cooperative sector. Am I correct? Okay. So partnership with private institutions, this is public-private partnership. That model has been existing for several, for quite some time. But whereas a partnership with cooperatives, it is looked at as a kind of engagement where government provides money to cooperatives to work. So cooperatives to deliver the government programs or share capital, contribution to share capital in some parts, some of the Asian countries. Whereas in some countries, of course, government is also helping in improving the human resource. So improving the human resource is generally the only resource that is being shared between government and the cooperatives, like establishing cooperative training institutions. So that kind of things is happening. But whereas with private, it is just money. Like, certain things you do, certain things we do. So that kind of a thing, that's my understanding of the public-private partnerships is public-private partnership. But with cooperatives, the terms are different. The terms are different and yeah.
Indira,
Sir?
I also see that the choice of a particular partner by the state is driven by the kind of prioritization that state does at any point in time,
That is
or
it.
the kind of result. For example, I'm going by the Indian government's example. A lot of government and private partnership in India is essentially in the area of physical infrastructure development. So when it comes to national highways and bridges and roads and building a metro rail network or something of this kind. Whereas the partnership with cooperatives is more on the social sector, is more related to health, education or some of those kind of areas. So they seem to be kind of a more defined territory that the state seem to be interested in. Could be because state thinks that the private sector is bigger, technologically more maybe superior. This is what I gather. But of course, this is from the Indian experience.
Indian perspective, yes.
Thank you for that. I think in Australia we are working in the health sector to promote co-ops as a solution also in the health sector, whereas it has been largely private or community organized, other community, not for-profit community organizations. So that's why I'm asking. So these partnerships can have many forms, also in the social sector and health.
We have
Jose has a question.
Jose Chottukulam.
Yeah, I would like to appreciate very particularly the research study and the presentations. Thank you. I have a particular question. You see, apart from engaging with the state and cooperatives and parting with the partnership, the point is that there you see the partnership and engagement, sometimes it may be at the cost of the cooperative principles. So the point is that their states, they actually try to capture the cooperatives, which is happening in the entire context. In the terms of trade between the state and the cooperatives, apart from engaging and partnership, I feel that there is some amount of capturing which is taking place. If that is the case there, I feel that their cooperatives may lose the identity issues there, the basic principles. So the point is that there, apart analyzing the engagement and the partnership, the kind of autonomy and the nature of the state and state capacity to give the autonomy to the cooperatives, that kind of analysis is maybe needed in somewhere. Otherwise, what happened? There is a problem of that. The basic assumption is that they're both the cooperatives and state. The objectives and one and the same is the welfare of the state. In majority case, what happened? The class character of the state, the nature of the state is always not in par with the cooperative principles. This aspect also we have to consider very seriously. Thank you. Again, thank you for your excellent presentation and excellent study report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.
Yeah.
Sir,
Thank
you want
you.
to respond? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. I agree with you that retaining cooperative identity
Autonomy.
is extremely important, and no partnership should be at the cost of that. Yeah, it happens, and it happens not only in case of state cooperative partnership. It happens in many kinds of
Partnerships.
partnerships. However, partnership also necessitates a give and take arrangement. I mean, you cannot really have partnership when you are too rigid on certain things. So therefore, it's a choice that one has to make. To get certain advantages, you will have to be ready to forego a few things. But I agree, certainly not the identity, certainly not the autonomy, not the principle, which I think is very important. I agree with you. Yeah.
Sir, one small contribution, like we did ask the stakeholders about the possibility of promoting partnerships without foregoing cooperative principles, and many of them agreed that it is possible. It is possible to enter into partnerships with the government without losing the cooperative spirit and without losing cooperative principles if both cooperatives and government come to an agreement and evolve proper partnerships. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. I see that we still have few questions, but we have already run out of time. So as much as we would like to address these questions, I will try to share these questions separately to you, Professor Dongre and Professor Indra, so that we can address these queries. And but as we are now, we have already passed our time limit. So I'd like to invite now Dr. Sitzel to share her reflections on today's sessions. And after that, we'll have a small feedback so that before closing the session today. Yeah. Dr. Sitzel, please.
Some interesting questions are there in the chat box. We will respond to them later.
Yeah, in a separate email or something, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to thank the excellent presentations and to get to introduce to us as a group of academics and interested partners into a topic that I think will be just more and more important going forward. I think as we kind of see I feel that the global situation can be a bit more tricky, but I think local and in regional collaboration is more and more important. And I think the more we know about different models of partnership between state and cooperatives, and I think helps us also say, oh, maybe this is a solution for our country or this region. I led a study tour to Europe looking at housing co-ops, and that was really also similar. When you compare models of cooperative solutions across countries, it gives you so many more ideas on how you can actually do this. And it doesn't mean that everything is right for every country, but expanding our horizon in a sense to see how different countries makes institutions or develop institutions to support the cooperative sector is, I think that's really important going forward. And I guess I'm really thrilled by the response you have received from all the participants in the seminar. I think it is really important report, and people generally think it is important and in need of further detail and further details in each country, and maybe also some of these models can come out clearer or exploratory studies. So yeah, I'd like to thank you both, Yashawante Dongre and Indira, for your excellent presentation and a great report. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sisal. Now we will like to have 1 to 2 feedback from our participants. I see Mr. Samir's hand raised. And I've also shared a feedback link in the chat box. So I would like to request all the participants to just go through the link and provide us their valuable feedback. It will just take around 1 minute to give their feedback. Yeah, Mr. Samir, please.
Thank you very much for all the feedbacks and thank you very much Professor Andera and Dangre for this presentation and to let us go back together and discuss this important issue. I believe this is the first milestone and we need to build on it. As I mentioned before, and Sitzel said the same thing about the CLA, to learn from others. To learn the success story in each country and build something related to that research. To see, as Dongre said, he said that like the health sector in India, it's a role model. So we need to learn about that, to not to reinvent the wheel. So let's meet again and see how can we prepare a study for successes in Jordan, in Arab countries, in Asian, in all those countries who has succeeded in some sectors, and in housing or in any other sectors. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time and efforts to make this happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Samir. Yeah.
If anyone else would like to share their feedback.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
just want to one second. I wish to thank ICA and also all the country participants and collaborators. It was a very nice experience for me, who works only with numbers, but I worked only with the documents and Samir has been very helpful and all the participants have provided. And thank you so much. Thanks to Professor Dongre and also ICA-AP for giving me this opportunity. I look forward for more interactions in future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you once again to the organizing committee. I mean, we all are also representing the research committee of the ICA-AP. So this is very good initiation. Dr. Dongre, thank you very much. And to you especially, and your entire team, Mr. Navin also. So you are coordinating very well. Yeah. So in the future also, maybe this kind of initiation should be continued. And whatever the document has been presented here, maybe it will be better if possible to share this document to the participants. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Babulji, just for benefit of everybody, the entire report is also available, I think, on the ICA-AP website. It's freely accessible, open source. So
Right.
you can actually download. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we will get from there. Yeah.
Thank you. So before we close for the day, I would like to request if everyone can switch on their cameras and we can take a click to post on and to share on social media and for our documentation purpose, please.
Without smile, don't take any photo.
Yes. So everyone needs to. So there's smiley faces. So no one, I think, likes to say a non-smiley face on social media, right? Thank you. Thanks a lot. So, yes. So it was the 11th session of Coop Colloquium that we had today. Now we will again try to meet in the month of February, where we will come with another interesting topic for the Coop Colloquium that we are deciding on at the moment, and we will share with all of you soon. Thank you. Professor Dongre, would you like to say something before we close?
No, just thank you. Thank you very much. We'll keep meeting. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.